He had repudiated the demon as he walked to the house, and his heart had been full of joy. Was there something in the whole aspect of the man today sufficient to justify the prince's terror and the awful suspicions of his demon? Something seen but indescribable, which filled him with dreadful presentiments? Yes, he was convinced of it. Convinced of what? Oh, how mean and hideous of him to feel this conviction, this presentiment! How he blamed himself for it! "Speak, if you dare, and tell me, what is the presentiment?" he repeated to himself over and over again. "Put it into words, speak out clearly and distinctly." Oh, miserable coward that I am! The prince flushed with shame for his own baseness. How shall I ever look this man in the face again? My God, what a day! And what a nightmare, what a nightmare! There was a moment during this long, wretched walk back from the Petersburg side when the prince felt an irresistible desire to go straight to Rogojin's, wait for him, embrace him with tears of shame and contrition, and tell him of his distrust, and finish with it, once for all. But here he was back at his hotel. How often during the day he had thought of this hotel with loathing, its corridor, its rooms, its stairs. How he had dreaded coming back to it for some reason. "What a regular old woman I am today," he had said to himself each time, with annoyance. "I believe in every foolish presentiment that comes into my head." He stopped for a moment at the door. A great flush of shame came over him. "I am a coward, a wretched coward," he said, and moved forward again. But once more he paused. Among all the incidents of the day, one recurred to his mind to the exclusion of the rest. Although now that his self-control was regained, and he was no longer under the influence of a nightmare, he was able to think of it calmly. It concerned the knife on Rogojin's table. Why should not Rogojin have as many knives on his table as he chooses? Thought the prince, wondering at his suspicions, as he had done when he found himself looking into the cutler's window. What could it have to do with me? He said to himself again, and stopped as if rooted to the ground by a kind of paralysis of limb, such as attacks people under the stress of some humiliating recollection. The doorway was dark and gloomy at any time, but just at this moment it was rendered doubly so by the fact that the thunderstorm had just broken, and the rain was coming down in torrents. And in the semi-darkness the prince distinguished a man standing close to the stairs, apparently waiting. There was nothing particularly significant in the fact that a man was standing back in the doorway, waiting to come out or go upstairs, but the prince felt an irresistible conviction that he knew this man, and that it was Rogojin. The man moved on up the stairs. A moment later the prince passed up them too. His heart froze within him. In a minute or two I shall know all, he thought. The staircase led to the first and second corridors of the hotel, along which lay the guests' bedrooms. As is often the case in Petersburg houses, it was narrow and very dark, and turned around a massive stone column. On the first landing, which was as small as the necessary turn of the stairs allowed, there was a niche in the column, about half a yard wide, and in this niche the prince felt convinced that a man stood concealed. He thought he could distinguish a figure standing there. He would pass by quickly and not look. He took a step forward, but could bear the uncertainty no longer and turned his head. The eyes, the same two eyes, met his. The man concealed in the niche had also taken a step forward. For 1 second they stood face to face. Suddenly the prince caught the man by the shoulder and twisted him round towards the light, so that he might see his face more clearly. Rogojin's eyes flashed, and a smile of insanity distorted his countenance. His right hand was raised, and something glittered in it. The prince did not think of trying to stop it. All he could remember afterwards was that he seemed to have called out, "Parfen, I won't believe it!" Next moment something appeared to burst open before him. A wonderful inner light illuminated his soul. This lasted perhaps half a second, yet he distinctly remembered hearing the beginning of the wail, the strange, dreadful wail, which burst from his lips of its own accord, and which no effort of will on his part could suppress. Next moment he was absolutely unconscious. Black darkness blotted out everything. He had fallen in an epileptic fit. As is well known, these fits occur instantaneously. The face, especially the eyes, become terribly disfigured. Convulsions seize the limbs, a terrible cry breaks from the sufferer, a wail from which everything human seems to be blotted out, so that it is impossible to believe that the man who has just fallen is the same who emitted the dreadful cry. It seems more as though some other being, inside the stricken one, had cried. Many people have borne witness to this impression, and many cannot behold an epileptic fit without a feeling of mysterious terror and dread. Such a feeling, we must suppose, overtook Rogojin at this moment, and saved the prince's life. Not knowing that it was a fit, and seeing his victim disappear head foremost into the darkness, hearing his head strike the stone steps below with a crash, Rogojin rushed downstairs, skirting the body, and flung himself headlong out of the hotel, like a raving madman. The prince's body slipped convulsively down the steps till it rested at the bottom. Very soon, in 5 minutes or so, he was discovered, and a crowd collected around him. A pool of blood on the steps near his head gave rise to grave fears. Was it a case of accident, or had there been a crime? It was, however, soon recognized as a case of epilepsy, and identification and proper measures for restoration followed one another, owing to a fortunate circumstance. Colia Ivolgin had come back to his hotel about 7 o'clock, owing to a sudden impulse which made him refuse to dine at the Epanchins', and, finding a note from the prince awaiting him, had sped away to the latter's address. Arrived there, he ordered a cup of tea and sat sipping it in the coffee-room. While there, he heard excited whispers of someone just found at the bottom of the stairs in a fit, upon which he had hurried to the spot with a presentiment of evil, and at once recognized the prince. The sufferer was immediately taken to his room, and though he partially regained consciousness, he lay long in a semi-dazed condition. The doctor stated that there was no danger to be apprehended from the wound on the head, and as soon as the prince could understand what was going on around him, Colia hired a carriage and took him away to Lebedeff's. There he was received